Everyone expected the loudest laughter of the afternoon to come from old memories and friendly jokes. Instead, it came from the cruel whispers aimed at one quiet man standing alone near the edge of the reunion lawn. His faded shirt had been carefully ironed, his shoes had been polished until they could almost hide their age, and his little daughter clung tightly to his hand as if she knew the world had already decided they did not belong. No one noticed the tears he had learned to hide behind a gentle smile. No one imagined that before the afternoon was over, a billionaire would walk through the crowd, ignore every wealthy guest, and head straight toward the single father everyone had mocked. The reunion would never be remembered for the speeches or the decorations. It would be remembered for the moment kindness defeated pride. Before we begin this unforgettable story, please take a moment to like this video, leave a comment, share it with your friends, and subscribe to the channel Hardworking Dad if you believe kindness and second chances can change someone's life forever. Your support helps us bring more inspiring stories to people around the world. The bright afternoon sun covered the community park in golden light as families laughed beneath colorful tents and old classmates proudly displayed their successful lives. Luxury cars lined the entrance, expensive watches flashed beneath the sunlight, and conversations revolved around promotions, vacations, and achievements. Among all those polished appearances walked Rowan Mercer, a 38-year-old warehouse worker who had almost decided not to come. For years he had ignored every reunion invitation, convinced there was no place for someone like him among people who measured worth by money. But his 12-year-old daughter, Nia, had quietly encouraged him to attend. She believed people deserved another chance, even when life had not been fair. Rowan wanted her to see that courage sometimes meant showing up despite knowing you might be hurt. Life had changed completely for Rowan 8 years earlier when his wife died unexpectedly after a sudden illness. In one heartbreaking week he had lost the love of his life and become both father and mother to a frightened little girl. The medical bills swallowed every dollar they had saved, forcing him to sell their small home and move into a modest apartment on the edge of town. Every morning before sunrise he loaded delivery trucks, and every evening he hurried home to help Nia with homework, cook simple meals, wash clothes, and prepare for another exhausting day. Sleep became a luxury, but he never allowed his daughter to feel the weight resting on his shoulders. She always saw the same warm smile that reminded her everything would somehow be all right. Although Rowan worked harder than almost anyone he knew, success never seemed to arrive. Promotions always went to someone else. Unexpected expenses kept appearing. Sometimes the electricity bill forced him to skip buying new clothes. Yet he refused to complain because he believed character was built not by comfort but by perseverance. Nia inherited that same gentle spirit. She excelled in school, volunteered at the local library, and thanked her father every single night for everything he sacrificed. She never asked for expensive gifts because she understood that love had always been the richest thing in their tiny apartment. The reunion began pleasantly enough until small groups recognized Rowan. Faces that had once shared classrooms with him slowly changed from surprise to amusement. Some remembered him as the quiet student who always helped others but never chased popularity. Now they looked him up and down, noticing the worn sleeves of his shirt and the careful patches on his shoes. They smiled politely at first before drifting into conversations filled with subtle insults disguised as harmless curiosity. Questions about his career quickly became opportunities to compare salaries. Comments about his daughter turned into pity because she was being raised by only one parent. Rowan answered every question with calm dignity, refusing to let bitterness grow inside him. As the afternoon continued, the whispers became louder. Several classmates gathered near the refreshment table, laughing softly while pretending not to stare. They admired each other's expensive lifestyles and joked that hard work alone was never enough if someone lacked ambition. Rowan heard fragments of every sentence carried by the breeze. He felt each word land like another stone upon his heart, yet he kept his eyes focused on Nia, who was happily feeding crumbs to nearby birds. Protecting her happiness mattered far more than defending his pride. What none of those people understood was that Rowan possessed something they had quietly lost years ago. He remembered birthdays of elderly neighbors. He repaired broken bicycles for children without asking for payment. He spent weekends delivering groceries to widows who struggled to leave their homes. Even after exhausting work shifts, he volunteered whenever disasters struck nearby communities. His kindness had never appeared in newspapers because he never performed it for attention. He simply believed the world became brighter each time someone chose compassion over convenience. As music played across the park, an unexpected convoy of elegant black vehicles slowly approached the entrance. Conversation stopped almost instantly. Curious eyes turned toward the arriving guests. Rumors spread that a famous entrepreneur had accepted an invitation after making a large donation to the town's education foundation. Excitement swept through the crowd as everyone adjusted their clothing and prepared to introduce themselves. Cameras appeared. Smiles widened. People who had ignored one another moments earlier suddenly competed for the best position near the entrance. From the lead vehicle stepped Adrian Vale, one of the country's youngest self-made billionaires. His success in renewable energy had transformed countless communities while making headlines across the nation. Despite his immense wealth, Adrian carried himself with quiet humility rather than arrogance. He greeted volunteers before greeting organizers, thanked security guards before acknowledging local officials, and smiled warmly at children who waved from a distance. The crowd expected him to mingle with business owners and influential guests. Instead, he paused as though searching for someone very specific. His eyes moved across hundreds of faces before finally resting on Rowan. Without hesitation, Adrian walked away from the waiting organizers, leaving confused reporters and wealthy guests behind. Every step increased the silence surrounding the reunion until only the sound of birds remained. Rowan assumed the billionaire was heading towards someone standing behind him, but Adrian continued forward until he stood directly in front of the single father everyone had mocked. The billionaire's face broke into a grateful smile filled with genuine emotion. Before anyone could understand what was happening, Adrian embraced Rowan with deep respect. Shock spread across the entire gathering. The same people who had laughed only minutes earlier stared in disbelief as one of the richest men in the country treated the warehouse worker like a beloved friend. Years earlier, before anyone knew Adrian's name, he had been a struggling college student driving through a severe storm. His car had broken down on a deserted highway during the middle of the night. With no phone signal and freezing rain pouring down, hope seemed impossible until an old pickup truck stopped beside him. The driver was Rowan, returning home after a double shift. Instead of continuing home to rest, Rowan spent hours helping the stranded stranger repair the vehicle. When the engine refused to start, Rowan towed the car into town, paid for a motel room, bought dinner with the little cash he carried, and quietly left before sunrise so the young man would not feel embarrassed. He never asked for a name, reward, or future favor. He simply believed helping someone in need was the right thing to do. Adrian had searched for Rowan for years. Success arrived faster than expected, but the memory of that rainy night never disappeared. He often said during interviews that one anonymous act of kindness had restored his faith when he had nearly abandoned his dreams. Eventually he traced Rowan through old towing records and learned about the reunion. Rather than arranging a private meeting, Adrian wanted the world to witness what true character looked like. The billionaire gently introduced Rowan to everyone gathered around them, explaining that while many people admired wealth, they should admire integrity even more. He described how Rowan had sacrificed precious time, money, and comfort for a complete stranger without expecting recognition. Adrian admitted that if Rowan had driven past that stormy highway, the business he later built might never have existed because he had been ready to give up on everything. The reunion guests lowered their eyes in shame. Their expensive clothes suddenly felt meaningless beside the quiet greatness standing before them. They realized they had judged a man by his paycheck while ignoring the richness of his heart. Some remembered moments years earlier when Rowan had helped them with school projects, defended classmates from bullies, or shared his lunch with students who had forgotten theirs. He had always been the same person. Only their priorities had changed. Adrian then revealed one final surprise. He announced the creation of the Mercer Family Foundation, named after Rowan and his late wife, dedicated to supporting single parents struggling to rebuild their lives after unimaginable loss. The first donation was large enough to provide scholarships, emergency housing assistance, childcare support, and educational opportunities for hundreds of families. Adrian insisted Rowan become the foundation's director because no one understood compassion better than the man who had lived it every day. Tears filled Rowan's eyes as he looked toward Nia. She ran into his arms, overwhelmed with happiness not because of the money but because the world had finally seen the man she had admired all her life. Every sleepless night, every sacrifice, every quiet act of kindness had not been wasted. They had become seeds planted in invisible soil, finally blooming before everyone who once doubted him. In the months that followed, Rowan continued living with the same humility that had always defined him. He refused luxury for its own sake and focused instead on helping struggling parents find hope. Families who had believed they were completely alone discovered someone who truly understood their pain. Children received school supplies, safe homes, and encouragement because one father's compassion had inspired another man's gratitude. The foundation became known not simply for financial assistance but for restoring dignity to people who had almost forgotten their own worth. The old classmates often reflected on that unforgettable afternoon. They realized success measured only by wealth could disappear overnight, but kindness left echoes that survived for generations. Many changed the way they treated neighbors, co-workers, and strangers because they had witnessed a living example of humility rewarded in the most unexpected way. The reunion became a lesson passed through the town for years, reminding everyone that the quietest person in the room might be carrying the greatest story. If this story touched your heart, please like this video, share it with someone who needs hope today, leave a meaningful comment below, and subscribe to Hardworking Dad for more emotional stories that remind us kindness is never wasted. Special request: comment, kindness always comes back, if you believe even the smallest good deed can change someone's life forever. As the sun slowly disappeared behind the trees, Rowan and Nia walked home hand in hand exactly as they had arrived. They carried no pride, no anger, and no desire for revenge. They carried only gratitude. The billionaire had not changed who Rowan was. He had simply revealed to the world what had always been true. Real greatness is not found in bank accounts, luxury cars, or public applause. It is found in tired hands that continue helping others, in broken hearts that still choose love, and in ordinary people who quietly refuse to let kindness disappear from the world. Long after the applause faded and the reunion became only a memory, one truth remained brighter than the afternoon sun. A compassionate heart will always be richer than a wealthy pocket, and sooner or later, the world finds a way to honor those who never stop doing good.